I actually I don't have any sort of idea what they're talking about, because hate speech in their mind is something defined by their sort of ideas. I don't know if we know what that would be.
Exactly. And hate speech has been thought of as a project of the political left traditionally. The left was advancing it on behalf of those who they considered to be oppressed groups who faced violence from not just right-wing vigilantes, but from state violence because they were historically oppressed. And so you couldn't, hate speech laws would punish people for using, for example, the N-word or inciting against minorities. And now, in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, the political right, but really Trump Incorporated, has shown its own hand and wants to institute, according to Attorney General Pam Bondi, hate speech laws to crack down on their own political enemies, which represents the left, which includes historically oppressed groups. And they're going to do it to protect the 1%, including one of the most privileged groups in the United States, American Jews. The Donald Trump administration came into office promising to destroy DEI programs. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which are sort of a liberal or neoliberal interpretation of it reflects a neoliberal interpretation of civil rights. It's basically, if you take the class component out of civil rights and you advance minority ambitions within corporations or within the military by giving them preferential admission treatment. They want to eliminate that. But at the same time, they are providing DEI programs specifically to wealthy American Jews to please the billionaire donors of Netanyahu, who are simultaneously paying for Donald Trump's campaigns. So most recently, the National Endowment for the Humanities, which is a wing of the US government which has funded the arts. And the right wing of the Republican Party has always tried to defund.
We've been awake since 5:30 in the morning.
To defund this entity. The Trump administration is funding it, and they're now allocating the largest grant in the history of the NEH to something called the Tikva Fund, which is a Likudnik Israel lobby organization, which counts among its board members and fellows Bari Weiss, one of the premier voices of the Zionist 1% in the US, and Brett Stevens, who is the in-house Israel pro-Netanyahu propagandist at the New York Times. And these are wealthy people who don't need grants or support. It's just a way of paying back all of the ultra-Zionist donors. So the Trump administration is administering DEI, Jews-only DEI, which will only actually fuel more anti-Jewish sentiment among the conservative grassroots. And they are going to, at the same time, impose censorship on those who that group considers their opponents, supporters of Palestine, Muslims, the anti-war movement, direct action protesters. Donald Trump has just classified Antifa as a terrorist organization in the wake of Charlie Kirk's killing. What is Antifa? Again, it's like hate speech. It's something that's totally subjective that cannot be objectively classified. Antifa is an amorphous network of basically anyone who wants to go out and carry out direct actions against what they consider to be fascism. And they do property damage, and they have engaged in kind of like fistfights with the vigilante wing of the Republican Party, the Proud Boys and groups like that. They usually lose. But the important thing to know here is that Antifa, while not being a formal organization, is also heavily infiltrated by law enforcement. Any cop or FBI agent can just put on a mask and join their protests and get in their Discord chats. And that means that by classifying Antifa as a terrorist organization, what Trump has done is created the perfect terror factory for generating government plots to turn up the temperature and turn up the fear, and then manufacture consent for more repression. This is precisely what the FBI did during the George W. Bush and Obama era, when over 90% of all terror plots in the United States that were stopped by the FBI, according to researcher Trevor Aronson, were actually hatched, manufactured by the FBI itself. They were all controlled plots. And I can rattle off some very specific ones, but you had, like, at one point, the FBI actually following in a car behind shooters who they directed to attack a Draw Muhammad competition, an Islamophobic Draw Muhammad competition in Texas. The FBI followed the car of the shooters that they had personally groomed to attack this contest, and then watched as they were shot by security. And then, you know, the public was told the terrorists from ISIS had come to shoot up this free speech competition. So get ready for more of that under Donald Trump, as Antifa is classified as a terrorist group, along with unprecedented censorship and crackdown on all domestic criticism.